Firstly, I will say thank you very much to the organizers for this opportunity to tell about our organization. Okay. The activities of the Baltic Initiative and Network can be seen in our logo. The countries around the Baltic Sea, better international understanding, information about the Cold War period told from sites where events took place. The main objective of the initiative is to strengthen mutual understanding between the countries around the Baltic Sea through an exchange of information about the recent history, mainly the Cold War period. Why did we want to create more mutual understanding based on most recent history? I should say a few words about the background. And as example, I will use my own country, Denmark. We were, in fact, misinformed about the real situation in the communist countries. The Iron Curtain, and especially the Soviet propaganda, was very effective in Denmark. Leading person in the media, nearly all intellectuals, and in practice, all university teachers looked very positively and very romantically at the Soviet Union. We did not know much about the real situation in the communist countries. Most information from the West, especially from the United States, was seen as propaganda. In general, we was concentrating on developing our improvement welfare and had, as it must be to say, not interested in the communist countries that we did not have much contact with. And they did not affect our developing welfare. And now the main question. What do people in Denmark know today about for example, the history about the Baltic states? The partisan movement after the Second World War is completely unknown, although, for example, 36,000 Lithuanians was killed, and it was only 1 hour by air from Denmark. We knew something about the gulags, but not that so many people from the Baltic states and Poland were sent to them, and nothing about the ordinary deportations from these countries. If you ask them, what do Danish people know about, for example, Lithuania today, our close partner in EU and NATO, and today chairman in the EU, most Danish people know one thing. They know that 20% of all foreign prisoners in Danish prisons today are from Lithuania, and that they represent the biggest group of foreign prisoners. This is what you will hear from Danish persons. This kind of facts form the current background to our organization, and we think that most recent history is one of the key areas from which to gain a better understanding between the countries and people. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, many Scandinavian people visited the former communist countries. For many of them, it was simply a cultural shock because of the differences between their reality and their knowledge of the countries. This is the reason behind the background to the founding of the Baltic Initiative and Network. Our main idea is that history should be told from historical valuable sites at which the events took place, as well as museums connected to these sites. The opinion is that recent history can be told effectively from the historical sites. In the first 15 years after the collapse of the Soviet Union, when I was working in nearly all of the countries, very many sites and relics was destroyed. Initially, they were seen not as historical storytelling sites, but as reminders and relics of the occupations from which the memories have to be destroyed very quickly. It was the same situation in Denmark after the Second World War. It took around 15 years before there was an extensive interest among people in general in terms of protecting the historical sites. There were some private individuals and some organizations who wanted to tell their history immediately after the collapse of the Soviet Union. And that's the reason why we have the occupation museums in Tallinn and Riga, and we have protected the KGB museum in Vilnius. But to begin with, there was no broad public or political interest, and in a few countries, it's still the situation today. Relevant sites for us is, for example, the military installations, the KGB offices, partisan bunkers, prison camps, cemeteries, sculptures, architectures, or simply squares or buildings where memorable events took place. The Baltic Initiative and Network is mainly interested in sites with a storytelling potential. And it's important for us that each country protect the sites and tell its own history. These storytelling sites are important for the country's own, also important for the country's own inhabitants and for visitors from foreign countries. A main target group for us is the young people. We have three main tasks of the initiative. I have to read it because of the translation. To promote registration and protection of historical valuable installations and sites with a storytelling value, to promote information about recent history from these sites, and especially directed toward visitors from foreign countries, and this is the cultural tourist aspects, and to start concrete international activities and cooperation projects which can improve international understanding. Our most important tool is our website. And we started, I can say something about our organization. We started seriously in 2006, which means that we are a relatively new organization. We have regulations, but we function more as an action group. We have a small advisory group, of which I'm the secretary. All work are carried out on voluntary basis. We have national contacts, active national contact persons in all countries. We receive no money for running costs, and we seek financial support for each individual activity. We have so far obtained support from public authorities in Denmark, Germany, Sweden, and Poland, and from the Nordic Cultural Fund and from private funds. We have positive contact with more than 100 organizations and museums around the Baltic Sea. The most important activities is our website, which have detailed descriptions of more than 125 historical sites and museums. We have maps, we have all information about opening times, we have photos, and we have descriptions about the content of the museums and about the exhibitions. The website has also a brief description of the most recent history of each of the country. We have also videos with eyewitnesses telling their stories at historical sites. We always emphasize at historical sites. If we involve some eyewitnesses, they have to tell their story, not in general, but on historical sites. We have descriptions of many traveling exhibitions that can be booked from other organizations. And we have also a list of eyewitnesses who are willing to visit other countries. And we also have their CVs the circumstances of which they can visit other countries. We have also produced a big guidebook with 550 illustrations. It was sold out after 1 month, so we have to reprint it. But you can download it from our website. We have planned until now 4 workshops and conferences with different partners. We have developed and commenced tourist tours about the most recent history together with a Danish travel company, and we have participated in we have started up 2 international networks about the most recent history periods. I will tell you a little about some of the topics that are interesting for our activities. The personal histories, the eyewitnesses, are important for our information activities. And here you have, I can't find it, at top left, a secret printing house in Kaunas. You have, at the right top, you have a reconstructed yurt for deported people. You have KGB prison down there, and you have a man who have been in the Gulag and also participated in the freedom demonstrations in the streets of Vilnius. We try to we involve eyewitnesses in all our activities on principle. We invite them always to conferences, involve them in tourist tours, describe their histories on the website and in the guidebook, etc., etc. About the tourism. Berlin, where it is now, is the town where the most sites are protected and are going to be protected and developed, and where new museums have opened. As far as I know, at least 12 new sites and museums have opened in the last year. It is interesting to see for us how tourism is developing in Berlin, because I believe that similar tourist interest will arise later in other capitals and bigger towns. It's a familiar tourist pattern. Some of the newer and more unknown sites that I think you should visit if you have time is at left top is the Tempelhof Airport, known from the Berlin airlift, now recreational area, and it's possible to get insight on guided tours. Then there is a small DDR apartment, also very interesting, and down left you have the Waldsiedlung Wandlitz. It's a residence for the communist leaders north of Berlin, and here you see the living house of Erich Honecker. And you could also visit the exhibition at the Bornholmer Straße border crossing that is very famous. I will say a little about Denmark. What we have protected from the Cold War period is, of course, military installations. Mainly on the initiative of us, the Ministry of Culture have now just appointed 25 Cold War sites worthy of preservation in Denmark. Here you have some that's already protected. It's the top left fort of Langeland for protecting of the big belt. And now at the right, we have one of the local nuclear secure command centrals in case of war, where you have all people from the municipality who was gathered and should take care of the situation. And left in the bottom, you have one of the coastal lookout cabins from which the Warsaw Pact's warships were followed in the Danish belts. It was such small wooden houses that was all along the belts and all along the coasts that looked like summer houses, but they was very effective. And the new one is at the bottom right. It's from the Command Central for the Air Defense of Copenhagen, who have just opened. Now I'll say something about the closed military towns, because we are very interested in those closed military towns. They are especially interesting for visitors because of their story-telling potential. Here we have an example. It's from a small Polish town, Borle-Sundenowo, today very near the border to Germany, but before that it was a German town, and it was called Großborn. It's a small town, and it is located by the biggest heath in Northern Europe. And it was in the First World War training area for the German army, and in Second World War it was the training area for General Rommel's desert troops, because it was more or less like you can see a desert, and also for General Guderian's troop that operated in Eastern Europe, in Russia. It's an interesting military town seen from the point of view of military town planning and architecture. You can see the town planning up there, and you can see it's not an ordinary town plan. I will not go into details, but it is made in this way because of military reasons. From the Second World War, you also have in this place 2 concentration camps for military officers. There was one concentration camps from the officers from the West who was under the protection of the Geneva Convention, and there was another one, and much harder one, for the Russian officers. And you can also find in this place the town, the houses where Goering have overnighted, where Guderian had overnighted, and even there is a house where Eva Braun have lived and overnighted. Not together with the two others, but... and you can also find the defense line of the Pomeranian Wall, so you also have this military aspects. And after the war, the Soviet army took over the town, and you can find, as you can see there, military base. And here you have the houses, and you can see this kind of architecture that is all over the town. And this is the house of the KGB. At the left and right, you have the house of the Communist Party. You have at the left, you have it's a cemetery from one of the concentration camps. It's made by this place here is for French officers. You have Russian cemeteries. You have everything that is connected to the Soviet army. You have all kind of traces from the communist period. My point is that in this small town, you can tell continuous European history, I will say even world history, just by traveling around in a relatively small town and the surrounding area. We have started a network with architect schools from Denmark, Sweden, Estonia, and Latvia, mainly because of the town planning and the architecture that normally is spectacular in such former closed towns. And there is really many towns. Not all of them have been completely closed. Some of them have been half closed. Some of them could, for example, if there had been a university, Tartu in Estonia, it was possible for students to come there, but not for others and so on. So you have all kind of closed towns, and in Russia, you still the towns is still closed. For example, in the Kola Peninsula. We have also started a project with museums from Norway, Denmark, Poland, Estonia, and Germany, and the output is we visit it's other. I'm not personally participating in it, but we have started it. The output will be a joint exhibition which compares the situation of ordinary people in the 5 countries during the Cold War period. Among these are the NATO military town Bodø in northern Norway that still have big military importance, and also this town we are talking about here, Borne Solenovo. Finally, I will say a few words about our proposed activities over the coming years. And it is mainly relatively small and very important concrete project to which we search for support mainly in private funds. About information activities, we want to improve our websites. The next thing we will do is that we will make videos from historical sites in town where we will drive around in the town. 1 minute, okay. We will make a new edition of the guidebook. We will make travel exhibitions. We will make a travel exhibition from a Gulag camp with deported people, and this will be in 3 parts. It is especially about art. One part will be original drawings and paintings. 2 will be photos from the sites today by the Polish photographer Thomas Kisny, and there will be videos with eyewitnesses from the sites. It will be a mix of art and history, and our idea is to reach people who's interested in art and also to involve the art museum in our activities. I think, unfortunately, it will be the last one will be a sleeping project for some years because we have used a lot of time to find partners. About education, we make activities with school teachers, children, and educational institution. In March this year, next year we have a study tour for 25 Danish high school historical teachers to Latvia and Lithuania, supported by Danish Ministry of Education. It is followed up by invitation to eyewitnesses to Denmark, and we have already got some money for that from high school. And we have also made a small book in Danish for education, and it is mainly about young people. For example, we have described the Lithuanian history by help of drawing from children. About tourism, we want to improve cultural tours. We have contract to travel agencies. 2 years ago, we arranged a tour for a Danish travel agency through the Baltic states. It had been followed up by the agency by 4 tours last year and 4 tours this year. Next year, we will arrange 2 tours for a Swedish travel company. The one will be from Rostock to Gdansk, from Stasi to Solidarity. The other one will be from Kaliningrad to the Lithuanian coast, and it will be also a little about Second World War. And one of the main events there will be to involve the Volga German minority, which have returned to Kaliningrad after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Then we will make a series of town guidebooks. Today, the tourist information offices simply have nothing about the newest history if you ask them for ordinary tourists. So we will make a town guide book list with same layout, and we will use the same idea as we used in the closed towns. You must link the sites together, and then you can describe an extensive and continuous history of the town. Then we also are going on with a small project that don't need any money support, and it's called The History Along Your Roads, and we are making a Cold War route around the Baltic Sea where you can visit some of the sites. And now, finally, we have 2 conferences underway, one in Hamburg for maritime museums around the Baltic Sea. We nearly have all the money. And we also want, I cannot talk much about that, but we want that UNESCO should appoint some of the Cold War sites already now as World Heritage Sites. And then we also want for the next 2 years to involve United Kingdom and US in our activities. And the reason is that in the middle of the Cold War period, the military focus changed from the Baltic Sea to the Atlantic, especially because of the main part of the Soviet Baltic fleets moved to Kola Peninsula and operated in the northern Atlantic. And we can also see that nearly half of all the visitors on our website is from United States. I hope these few words have given you an impression of our small voluntary organization. Thank you for listening.